In the modern world, where each day passes like an unbroken stream of noise, notifications, expectations, anxieties, and questions left unanswered, the human mind slowly grows weary, often without us realizing it. We become accustomed to needing to understand, to keep up, to remain in constant motion until we forget what it feels like to be still. Tonight, this journey does not ask you to think faster. It simply invites you to slow down. When you lift your gaze toward the night sky, there is something that seems forever the same: the moon. Always the same face. Always the same quiet presence suspended in the vastness of space. Yet within that familiarity lies a deeper question: why does it remain so? And if the moon can hold a steady rhythm across billions of years, might there also be such a rhythm within us, a state of balance we have quietly forgotten? In this video, you do not need to learn anything new. You only need to listen. We will step into a story of motion and stillness, of gravity and release, of the way the universe gently teaches us this truth. Sometimes peace does not come from going farther, but from returning to the rhythm that has always been your own. There is a familiar paradox that nearly all of us have accepted at some point without ever questioning it. Throughout our lives, whenever we look up at the night sky, we seem to see the same moon, the same familiar patches of light and shadow, the same silvery scars etched across its cold, rocky surface. And from this, we arrive at what feels like an obvious conclusion: the moon does not rotate. Yet, like many things in our inner lives, what appears obvious is not entirely true. In reality, the moon does rotate. It simply rotates so slowly and with such precision that we never notice. For more than 4 billion years, the moon has been turning on its own axis at a rhythm perfectly matched to the time it takes to complete one orbit around the Earth. One rotation, one orbit. Two motions woven into a single movement. Science calls this state tidal locking, a term that sounds dry and technical, yet beneath it lies a story deeply human, a story of motion fatigue and eventually stability. In its earliest days, the moon was not the quiet presence we know today. It spun rapidly. A single lunar day may have lasted only a few hours, but Earth's gravity, silent and patient, kept stretching the moon, raising invisible bulges deep within its rocky body. With every rotation, those bulges were pulled slightly out of alignment, and that tiny misalignment gave rise to friction. Friction is not loud. It does not explode. It simply drains energy very slowly. Bit by bit, millions of years passed like long, unhurried breaths. The rotation slowed, until at a moment no clock could precisely mark, the moon reached a remarkable state. It turned at exactly the same pace as its orbit. From then on, it always showed the same face to Earth. What makes this paradox profound is not the equations or the numbers, but the feeling it evokes. An object that never stands still, yet appears perfectly still. A motion so complete that it disappears from perception. Perhaps many of us are living in a similar state. We move each day. We think. We react. We change. And yet, deep within, some part of us keeps turning toward the same direction, the same worry, the same question, the same familiar face of ourselves. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But the path toward becoming oneself is rarely a sudden leap. More often, it is a slow synchronization like the moon, which needed billions of years to find a rhythm that fit the world around it. When we look up and see the moon as unchanging, perhaps we are misunderstanding the most important thing. Stability is not the absence of movement. Stability is movement that has found its rhythm. This is especially worth reflecting on in an age that constantly celebrates speed. Faster, more, farther. We are rarely taught how to slow down until our movement no longer hurts. We are rarely taught that exhaustion is not failure, but a sign that energy is being spent out of rhythm. Friedrich Nietzsche warned in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But perhaps even before the why, human beings need to find a rhythm, a way of living that does not fight against the gravity of who they are. The moon does not resist the earth, nor does it surrender. It adapts. Tidal locking is not a prison, but the result of a negotiation lasting billions of years between two forces, inertia and gravity. And when that negotiation ends, what remains is not lifeless silence, but a state so sustainable it feels almost eternal. If we were to stand on the moon's surface, on the side that always faces Earth, we would see our blue and white planet hanging motionless in the sky. It would never rise, never set, never hurry. An image that has left many scientists and dreamers silent for a long time the first time they imagined it. Because in that moment we realize that movement does not always need to be felt in order to exist. And as that thought settles, another gentle question appears. If a celestial body can take billions of years to find its rhythm, why do we force ourselves to understand everything within a single lifetime? Perhaps as Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." But to reach that place is not about running away. It is about turning at the right rhythm. And perhaps that is why the moon always shows us the same face. Not to remind us of immutability, but to quietly suggest that peace arrives when movement and orbit finally become one. Once we accept the paradox that the moon does rotate, yet rotates in a way that makes it seem motionless, the next question arises naturally, almost like a whisper in the dark. How did a movement that was once wild become so precise? The answer does not come from a dramatic moment. It comes from time. A vast amount of time. In its earliest days, when the moon had just formed from molten debris left behind by an ancient collision, it bore little resemblance to the calm presence we see today. It spun quickly, very quickly. Each day on the moon may have lasted only a few hours, and its surface was still soft-hot, easily shaped by invisible forces. It was then that Earth, without intention, without words, began to influence the moon in the only way the universe knows how, through gravity. Earth's gravitational pull did more than guide the moon along its orbit. It stretched the moon, gently but constantly. That stretching created tidal bulges, subtle deformations, deep within the rock itself. These bulges did not remain fixed. Because the moon was rotating, and because it rotated, the bulges were never perfectly aligned with Earth. They lagged behind just slightly, and it was this tiny misalignment that produced the most important element in this story: internal friction. Friction is not a dramatic force. It does not blaze with light or thunder with sound. Friction quietly transforms energy from motion into heat. With each rotation, a minuscule amount of energy was lost. No one could notice. There was no clear marker in time, but across hundreds of millions, then billions of years, the inevitable happened. The rotation slowed. Its rhythm drew closer and closer to the rhythm of the orbit, until at last the two became one. 27.3 days. A number with no mystical aura. Yet it marks the moment the moon entered what science calls synchronous rotation, complete tidal locking. From then on, the moon turned exactly once in the same time it took to circle Earth once. No more, no less. A movement so perfectly balanced that it erased itself from perception. This is not a rare exception in the universe. It is a slow but persistent rule. Io, a moon of Jupiter, is tidally locked too, though in a far more violent way, stretched so intensely that its interior remains molten, fueling constant volcanic eruptions. Titan, Saturn's moon, also shows only one face to its parent planet, wrapped in a thick atmosphere and seas of cold methane. Charon and Pluto are even locked to each other, two worlds eternally facing one another like a pair that never looks away. Wherever there is enough time, strong enough gravity, and material soft enough to dissipate energy, tidal locking appears. Not because of destiny, but because of fatigue, the fatigue of motion that has not yet found its rhythm. Perhaps that is why this story reaches so deeply into the human experience. How many thoughts within us spin too fast? How many emotions are constantly pulled out of alignment with their own center? We rarely stop because we want to. More often we stop because we no longer have the energy to keep spinning at the same pace. Sigmund Freud once wrote in Civilization and Its Discontents, "The price we pay for our advance in civilization is a loss of happiness through the heightening of the sense of guilt." But perhaps it is not only guilt. Perhaps it is also the quiet dissipation of inner energy like friction deep within the moon. What is beautiful is that tidal locking does not kill the moon. It simply guides it into another kind of motion, one that is more sustainable. And even in that locked state, the moon is not perfectly still. There are small oscillations called librations, slow nods, gentle tilts so subtle that only the patient observer ever notices them. Because of these movements, we can see about 59% of the moon's surface, not just half. As if the universe were reminding us that even in the most stable state, there is always room to breathe. No lock is absolute. No balance is rigid. Carl Jung once wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Libration is that secret order, a small movement that keeps the system from becoming brittle. And when we notice this, we begin to understand that healing does not come from stopping all thought. It comes when thought no longer collides with itself. Like the moon once it finally finds a rhythm that no longer generates friction. At the end of this part of the journey, there is no need to remember the numbers, no need to recall the names, only to hold on to a very gentle feeling that some movements are so slow we can only sense them when we slow down as well. And when we slow down long enough, we begin to hear the rhythm we had been missing all along. Once we understand that tidal locking is not a poetic hypothesis, but an inevitable result of time and friction, another quiet question begins to surface, almost without words. How do we know this is true? The universe never explains itself aloud. It leaves traces, and those traces are not found in the night sky. We see with the naked eye. but hidden deep within the moon's structure, within its weight, its density, and the way that ancient body of rock responds to gravity. When modern scientific missions began to orbit the moon, they did not search for answers through images first. They listened to its gravitational field, to tiny changes in spacecraft trajectories, to oscillations almost impossible to detect, to deviations measured in mere thousandths of a pull. Together, these subtle signals formed an invisible map, a portrait of what has unfolded inside the moon over billions of years. And what scientists discovered was this: the moon is not uniform. There are heavier regions, lighter regions, deep fractures within the rock where density shifts in unusual ways, as if the material there had once been stretched, heated, and then cooled very slowly. These scars are not random. They align remarkably well with models of tidal heating and deformation, exactly what we would expect if the moon had endured billions of years of being pulled, bent, and drained of rotational energy from within by Earth. As if the moon does not carry only a single face, but also memory, a memory carved into stone. Here, science and contemplation meet quite naturally, because human beings carry memory in much the same way. We do not always remember through images or stories. We remember through sensation, through tensions that linger in the body, through patterns of thought worn smooth by repetition over time. There are things long past that still carry weight. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in On the Use and Abuse of History for Life, "The past influences the present, even without our being conscious of it. The moon is the same. It does not remember consciously, yet its structure bears the marks of forces that once acted upon it, marks that cannot be erased. When we step away from numbers and return to experience, the story suddenly feels close. Imagine standing on the surface of the moon on the side that always faces Earth. There is no air, no sound, only darkness and slowly shifting light. Before you, Earth hangs suspended in the sky. It never rises, never sets, never moves. A blue and white sphere held perfectly still like a thought that never leaves the mind. You may turn your head, you may walk away, but Earth remains there, always there. It is an image both beautiful and strange, carrying a faint sense of unease, because it recalls the things in our lives that have become so familiar we no longer notice their presence. Relationships, memories, questions that have never left the sky of our inner world. We no longer look at them each day with wonder, yet they continue to hover there quietly, shaping how we live. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Earth in the moon's sky is much like that. It does not move, yet it governs. And if you step to the other side, the far side of the moon, something entirely different occurs. Earth disappears. Not because it is briefly hidden, but because it was never visible there at all. The sky is empty. The stars appear clearer, sharper, colder. There is no home, no familiar anchor, only an open universe without center, without audience. These two experiences, the near side and the far side, exist on the same celestial body, separated by only a few thousand kilometers, yet they represent two very different psychological states. One is constant presence, the other is absolute absence, and human beings, strangely enough, often live between these two poles. At times, we are haunted by something that never leaves our thoughts. At other times, we long to step into a space where that thing no longer appears. But like the moon, we cannot have both at once. Some perspectives only emerge when we accept that certain things will never rise in the sky we currently inhabit. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us in Meditations, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." This is not a pessimistic statement. It is an invitation to release the things we keep waiting to rise one day, even though our position will never allow it. Science shows us that the moon is not perfect or symmetrical. Philosophy reminds us that neither are we. This asymmetry is not a flaw. It is the consequence of history. The scars in the moon's gravitational field are proof that it has been strained, heated, and reshaped. And precisely because of that, it is stable today. Perhaps healing, too, is not about erasing every scar, but about letting those scars stop pulling us out of our own rhythm. As this thought settles, the story naturally continues. Because if the moon has left such clear traces within its very structure, then its relationship with Earth cannot be limited to a quiet beauty in the sky. It must have already and must still be deeply influencing the very planet on which we are now lying down to sleep. Once we have seen how the marks of tidal forces are carved deep into the moon's very structure, the current of thought naturally flows toward a question that feels intimately close. So close that we rarely notice it. What have those same silent forces done to Earth? Because the relationship between these two celestial bodies has never been one-sided. There is no giver, no receiver, only a slow exchange unfolding in the quiet of billions of years. Each time the moon passes across the night sky, Earth's oceans respond with a gentle motion. Water rises, water recedes, no urgency, no drama. We call this the tide. Yet beneath that familiar name lies a deeper truth. Earth is not entirely rigid. Not only water, but even the rocky crust of this planet shifts ever so slightly, ever so slowly under the moon's gravitational pull. And those tiny deformations create friction. And friction, as we have already seen on the moon, does not destroy through violence. It slows. Earth's day was once much shorter, far shorter. Hundreds of millions of years ago, a day lasted just over 20 hours. Earlier, still even less. But century by century, millennium by millennium, tidal forces have siphoned away a portion of Earth's rotational energy, stretching the length of the day so gradually that no living being could sense it within a single lifetime. And it is precisely this slowing that has made a livable rhythm possible. If Earth rotated much faster, winds would be fiercer, ocean currents more unstable, climate far more volatile. Life, if it existed at all, would be forced to struggle endlessly against extreme change. Here, the gentleness of the climate is not a gift. It is the consequence of energy being dissipated in the right way. Beyond this, the moon plays an even quieter role stabilizing Earth's axial tilt. Our planet tilts at about 23.5 degrees. That tilt creates the seasons. It creates the rhythm of warmth and cold. It creates cycles that life can learn to adapt to. Without the moon, this tilt would wander chaotically over time, tugged by the gravitational influence of other planets. At times, Earth might lean so far that one hemisphere would sink into prolonged ice, while the other endured relentless heat. But the moon is there, silent, not intervening directly, simply keeping time. Perhaps this is one of the most profound forms of influence we tend to overlook, not changing events themselves, but keeping change from exceeding what can be endured. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Nature does nothing uselessly." If that is true, then the moon's quiet presence in the night sky is not decoration. It is part of the structure that allows Earth to remain within the bounds of habitability. Here, science begins to touch philosophy in a very gentle way. Because human beings also live within similar gravitational fields. Not physical gravity, but the gravity of habits, memories, expectations, and fears. There are forces in our lives that do not pull us anywhere new. They simply prevent us from spinning too fast. Stable relationships, repeated rituals, familiar silences. We often dismiss them as boring, yet perhaps they are the moon of our inner lives, keeping our psychological axis from tilting too far. Carl Jung once warned in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And perhaps that terror lies not in confronting darkness, but in staying with ourselves long enough for everything to slow down. The moon does not force Earth to stand still. It only pulls just enough to keep Earth from tearing itself apart through speed. The stillness we perceive in the night sky, the familiar face, the unchanging light is not a sign of death. It is motion refined to its most efficient form. A state in which energy is no longer wasted in conflict. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in Human, All Too Human, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But Nietzsche did not say we must live forever in chaos. Perhaps once the star is born, what is needed is a stable orbit so it does not burn itself out. The moon has already walked that path, from initial chaos, through billions of years of dissipating energy, into a resilient balance. And Earth, the planet on which we now lie, down close our eyes and listen, has benefited from that balance far more deeply than we usually realize. Each season arrives and departs without abrupt violence. Each day lengthens imperceptibly. Each tidal cycle moves like a steady breath. All of it creates a world in which life does not need to brace itself constantly against collapse. Perhaps healing follows the same logic, not removing every gravitational pull, but allowing those forces to shape a rhythm rather than break us apart. As this thought settles, the story does not end. Because if the moon has influenced Earth so profoundly in the present, then that relationship must still be continuing, slower, more distant, stretching into the future. A future in which both are still learning how to slow down together. Once we begin to feel how the moon softens, Earth's breathing through the tides, through the tilt of the axis, through gentler seasons, the current of thought naturally descends one layer deeper. What has kept this state so enduring? Not a visible tether, not a command, but an invisible force, silent, precise, never growing tired. From early on, humanity learned to give this force a name. Isaac Newton placed it into equations. Johannes Kepler placed it into orbits. Yet its essence has always remained the same. Every mass draws another toward itself, and within that pull motion is shaped. In the relationship between Earth and the moon, gravity does more than prevent the moon from drifting away. It also twists. A very small torque, but one that persists, acting upon both worlds. Imagine Earth rotating faster than the moon orbits it. The tidal bulges in the oceans, and even within the rocky crust, are no longer perfectly aligned with the moon. They are pulled slightly ahead, And it is precisely this offset that creates a gravitational torque, like an exceedingly slow hand transferring energy from one place to another. That energy does not vanish. It changes location. Part of Earth's rotational energy is transferred into the moon's orbit. The result is that the moon drifts outward, very slowly, about 3.8 centimeters each year. A number so small it seems hardly worth noticing. Yet it is measured by one of the most delicate experiments humanity has ever performed: laser pulses reflected from mirrors left on the moon's surface by Apollo astronauts. Light travels out, light returns, and distance is recorded millimeter by millimeter. Meanwhile, Earth pays the price with its own spin. The day grows longer, very slowly, by a few milliseconds per century. No one wakes up in the morning feeling that today is longer than yesterday. But on the deep time scale of geology and evolution, this slowing shapes everything. This is the exchange of angular momentum, a dry principle on paper, yet one with a profoundly human beauty. No one loses everything. No one keeps everything. There is only redistribution so that the system can endure longer. Johannes Kepler once wrote in Harmonices Mundi, "The laws of nature are but the mathematical thoughts of God." Whether or not one believes in God, the idea of harmony is unmistakable here. The Earth-Moon system does not seek maximization. It seeks sustainability. And within that sustainability, motion does not disappear. It simply becomes slow enough to stop causing harm. Human beings often fear forces they cannot see. Yet most of what keeps us alive, gravity, time, habit, connection, is invisible. These forces do not push us to go faster. They keep us from shattering under speed. Carl Jung once wrote, in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, energy is a measure of the intensity of a psychic process. Seen this way, inner life operates through exchanges, much like the Earth-Moon system. When we spin too fast, thinking too much, reacting too strongly, there are quiet forces that pull us back. Fatigue, disenchantment, involuntary pauses. We tend to treat them as enemies, but perhaps they are simply doing what gravity has always done, transferring energy from rotation to orbit, from impulsiveness to stability, from explosion to endurance. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "One must shed the bad taste of wanting to agree with many." Yet perhaps before disagreeing with the world, we must learn how to synchronize with ourselves. Not by force, but by allowing invisible forces to do their work. What is striking is that this process is not finished. Even now, as you lie listening to these words, Earth is still slowing its spin. The moon is still drifting away. The universe does not rush to complete its tasks. There is a deep comfort in this, that there is no deadline for balance, that healing is not a destination, but a tendency. Marcus Aurelius once noted in Meditations, "Time is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place. Yet this river is not chaotic. It has banks, and gravity is what keeps its flow from spilling beyond itself." When we look again at the moon, the familiar face, the gentle light, we no longer see stillness. We see an agreement that has lasted billions of years, a negotiation between spinning and drifting, between holding and letting go. And as this thought settles, the body too may begin to settle. Because if two vast worlds can slow down together, then a weary mind can allow itself to stop spinning so fast tonight. The story does not end here. For if an invisible force has shaped the present with such delicate precision, it must also be extending the curve of this relationship into the future, farther, slower, and quieter still. Once we have traced the invisible force that keeps the moon and earth moving within a slow, enduring agreement, it feels natural for thought to widen beyond the familiar sky to see how other worlds have learned to live with that same pull. Because gravity does not favor, it only persists. Farther out around Jupiter, there is a moon named Io. Io too is tidally locked, but its story is anything but gentle. With each orbit around the giant planet, Io is stretched violently not only by Jupiter, but by neighboring moons as well. The pull is never synchronized. The rhythm is never calm. The result is relentless heating. Its interior churns. Its surface erupts continuously with volcanoes, the most intense volcanic activity in the entire solar system. Their tidal locking does not bring peace. It becomes a source of instability. And through this contrast, we begin to understand something essential. Tidal locking itself is neither healing nor destructive. Everything depends on the rhythm a system can tolerate. Our moon once passed through a phase closer to Io than we might imagine. In its early history, it too was hot. It too was strongly stretched. It too carried heat born of tidal friction. But there was a crucial difference. The moon was large enough to store and dissipate energy gradually, and Earth was stable enough not to continually disrupt that rhythm. Over time, the moon cooled. Its crust hardened. Internal friction diminished. Volcanoes fell silent. Oceans of magma closed. What was once a restless world became a contemplative one. Perhaps this is one of the deepest lessons the universe offers us. Not every motion needs to continue forever. There are phases of existence of planets and of people that must be allowed to cool. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in The Gay Science, "One must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star." But Nietzsche did not say that chaos must be preserved indefinitely. Perhaps once the star is born, what is needed is enough quiet space so it does not burn itself away. The moon's stability does not come only from cooling, but also from a very subtle asymmetry of mass. The moon's center of mass does not lie exactly at its geometric center. It is slightly offset toward Earth, a deviation too small to see yet sufficient to create a gravitational anchor. Because of this, the moon naturally tends to turn back toward the correct orientation, like a weight hung slightly off-center, always seeking its lowest point. The lock is therefore not fragile. It reinforces itself. When the moon tries to twist away its own shape and mass distribution pull it back, no adjustment is needed, no intervention. Just physics doing what it always does, finding the state that consumes the least energy. Data from the Grail mission revealed this more clearly than ever. The moon's gravitational field is uneven. It bears elongated signatures pointing toward Earth, as though the moon has been shaped not only in its orbit, but deep within its internal structure. Gravity does not merely decide where the moon goes. It decides what the moon becomes. Here, science and philosophy once again touch in silence. Carl Jung wrote in Ion, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Perhaps every force in our lives, every pull that once overheated us, provoked resistance, caused pain, is quietly shaping our inner structure as well. Not to break us, but to clarify our anchor. Not everyone becomes Io. Not everyone must burn endlessly. Some, like the moon, are allowed to cool, to settle, and to become stable in their own way. That stability is not the absence of history. On the contrary, it is history that has settled. The scars remain. The asymmetries persist, but they no longer generate storms. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." This can be read as a very gentle invitation. Do not try to erase the forces that have shaped you. Let them stop pulling you away from yourself. When we look outward to Io, to moons torn by unsynchronized pulls, we begin to appreciate the moon's quietness more deeply. Not because it is perfect, but because it has been hot enough to know when to stop. And when this understanding drifts into human life, we may softly ask ourselves, could this be a time to cool as well? Not to give up, not to surrender, but to let the forces that once tightened us become points of steady support. This story does not end in comparison, because once we see that the moon has been shaped so profoundly by Earth, not only in motion but in structure itself, another question begins to form in the darkness. If everything leaves such traces, where is the future of this relationship drifting along a long arc, slower still and quieter still? Once we have seen how the moon, once heated, was stretched and then slowly cooled into stability, the stream of thought naturally moves forward, not toward a near tomorrow, but toward a distant future where time is no longer measured in years or centuries, but in the breathing rhythms of geology. Because the relationship between Earth and the moon has never been complete, it is still unfolding, even now. Beneath your feet, in the deep, dark oceans, tidal friction is still quietly dissipating energy. With each wave that reaches the shore, with each current that recedes, no stronger than yesterday, no weaker than tomorrow, simply steady. Earth like the moon before it is slowing down. No senses can detect it. Yet atomic clocks, ancient sediment layers, and physical models all whisper the same truth: the day is growing longer, very slowly. And within this slowing, the moon continues to drift away, not abandoning, only loosening, like two beings once closely bound, gradually learning to keep enough distance so neither is harmed. Seen this way, the future is no longer frightening. It is merely the continuation of a process that began long ago. If time is long enough, very long, Earth too will approach the state the moon reached billions of years earlier, tidal locking. One day, far in the future, Earth will rotate exactly once. In the same time, the moon completes one orbit around it. Then, one half of the planet will always see the moon in its sky. The other half will never see it. No rising, no setting. An image that sounds strange, yet fits perfectly within the logic of the universe. There is no sudden ending, no moment of stopping, only motion becoming so slow it appears almost still. Here what matters is not whether this vision will truly occur, but how the universe approaches the future without haste, without jerks, without force. The universe never demands immediate stability. It allows chaos to wear itself down. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is its current. Yet that river, however strong, still bends to the shape of the land. It does not destroy everything in its path. It erodes until every sharp edge grows softer. Tidal friction works the same way. It does not seize energy. It takes it little by little. And for that reason, the Earth-Moon system never truly comes to rest. It only changes so slowly that the human mind, accustomed to short rhythms, cannot keep pace. Perhaps this is where philosophy may enter very gently, because we too often misunderstand stillness. We assume that when nothing changes, when emotions do not surge, when life lacks peaks, something must be wrong. But the universe offers a different lesson. Stillness is not stopping. Stillness is motion that has found a rhythm where it no longer hurts. Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book, "The soul demands your folly, not your wisdom." Perhaps the folly Jung speaks of is not reckless action, but the courage to allow oneself not to advance any faster. Earth does not need to spin more quickly to prove anything. The moon does not need to keep its old distance to preserve the relationship. Both are moving together toward a future where energy is dissipated to the lowest possible level. In physics, this is called a stable state. In inner life, it might be called peace. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "All becoming is suffering." But Nietzsche did not say that all suffering is meaningless. Some fatigue is simply a sign that we are shifting phases from a tense rhythm of living into one that can be sustained for longer. When we think about the far future of Earth and the Moon, we need not imagine catastrophe or loss. We only need to imagine slowing. Slow enough for all conflict to settle. Slow enough for forces that once caused tension to become a stable ground. And within that slowness, nothing is left behind. Everything merely changes place. Rotational energy becomes distance. Speed becomes endurance. Motion becomes ordered stillness. Perhaps this is the gentle message the night sky sends each evening, that you do not need to resolve the future right now. You do not need to know where you are going. You only need to allow your rhythm to slow enough for invisible forces to do their work. The Earth-Moon system does not rush to complete its journey, and neither do you. Because in this universe, every stable state is built not through leaps, but through the patience of time. When we speak of the very distant future where Earth and the Moon slowly approach a state of perfect synchronization, the stream of thought naturally invites us to turn back, not to indulge in nostalgia, but to listen to the deepest memory the moon still carries within itself. For before becoming as quiet and familiar as it is tonight, it was once an entirely different world. There was a time when the moon rotated freely, fast, hot, and unstable. Immediately after the event that science gives the dry name of the giant impact hypothesis, when a Mars-sized body, Theia, collided with the young Earth, what remained was not peace. It was an ocean of molten rock, a red-orange glow filling space, a newborn moon spinning within chaos. A day then did not last a month. It lasted only a few hours. The moon rotated like a glowing ember just torn from a furnace carrying excess energy with nowhere yet to place it. And Earth, still hot and violent, did not stand apart. Its gravity began to touch the moon not as a sudden jerk, but as a grasp extended over hundreds of millions of years. Tidal friction did not rush. It did not destroy. It withdrew, bit by bit. Each rotation of the moon was a moment when energy transformed into heat. Each bending of the rocky surface was a moment when memory was inscribed. And like the human body after a long injury, the moon did not heal evenly. What we see today, the difference between the near side and the far side, is not random. It is the trace of a slow recovery. The near side, always facing Earth, retained a thinner crust. Heat could still escape. Lava could rise, filling old wounds, forming the dark, flat basaltic maria that appears soft to the eye. The far side was different, farther, colder, and it hardened earlier. Its crust, thickened like armor, formed too soon, preserving every scar of impact. There were no lava seas to erase the marks, only deep craters, sharp ridges, and a rough surface like a diary never edited. Here, science calls it geology, but we might call it memory. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The moon's far side is like that unconscious part, not visible at first glance, not participating in familiar stories, yet carrying the true history of slowing down. As the moon decelerated, it did not become more symmetrical, it became more real. The asymmetry we see today is the fossil of motion evidence that every stable state has passed through chaos. No peace arrives without leaving marks. And if we listen slowly enough, this can reach a deeper layer of human experience, because human beings too once spun very fast, in early years. In periods of survival, adaptation, constant reaction, we spent energy, we overheated, we collided, and then over time something began to slow us down, not to punish us, but to keep us from tearing ourselves apart. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Human, All Too Human, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." The moon once was that chaos, and its locked state today is the dancing star that has found its rhythm. But perhaps the most beautiful thing is this: the moon does not hide its past. It does not polish it away. It does not erase or smooth everything flat. It allows the far side to keep its scars. It allows the near side to become gentler. Both coexist without contradiction. At night, when we look up and see only one familiar face, we may forget that this stability was built from countless short days, countless moments of free rotation, countless unseen frictions. And perhaps that is the whisper meant for those listening now. That if you feel uneven, if part of you cooled earlier than another, if there are regions of your mind still rough, not yet filled by the lava of understanding, this does not mean you are broken. It only means you have gone through the process of slowing down in your own way. The moon did not become peaceful by rotating evenly from the beginning. It became peaceful by allowing time to leave its marks. And when we accept those marks, when we stop forcing ourselves to be symmetrical, to be perfect, to be even, we may begin to sense a deeper kind of stability. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of emotion fully remembered. The moon today no longer rotates freely, yet the traces of that freedom remain in the rock, in the crust, in its uneven shape. And it is precisely this history that makes its stillness not cold but full of time. After listening to the story of a moon that once spun, quickly burned hot, and then gradually slowed, the natural flow of reflection carries us to another place, one that humanity did not see for thousands of years. not because it was farther away, but because it always turned its back. The far side of the moon. Even the phrase itself evokes something deeply human, something that exists yet is not meant for the gaze, not hidden by intention, but simply never turned toward us. For most of human history, the moon seemed to have only one face. The stories, symbols, myths, and comforts it offered were all bound to that familiar visage. We grew accustomed to believing that what we saw was the whole, until 1959. When the small spacecraft Luna 3 slipped around the moon's far side and sent back the first images, what humanity received was more than scientific data. It was a touch against the limits of perception. The far side was not what we imagined, not symmetrical, not gentle. There were no dark, flat basalt seas to anchor the imagination, no familiar Maria where thought could rest easily. Instead, there was a rugged surface dense with impact craters overlapping ridges like memories that had never been soothed. The crust here was thicker, harder, as if this part of the moon had been forced to mature earlier, cool earlier, and thus carry more traces of what it had endured. If the near side was where lava once rose to fill wounds, the far side was where there was no chance to heal through heat. And as more modern missions, from the detailed maps of LRO to refined gravitational data, began to redraw this picture with clarity, humanity slowly realized that the far side was not less complete. It was simply more honest. There, one scar stands out with particular force: the South Pole Aitken Basin. A depression so vast that if you stood within it, the horizon would curve upward, slipping beyond sight. It was no minor accident. It was the trace of an ancient collision violent enough to pierce deep into the crust, leaving a memory that has lasted billions of years. In human life, we often try to hide our scars. We smooth our stories. We retell only what sounds gentle. But the moon's far side does not do this. It keeps everything. Perhaps that is why when Chang'e 4 landed on the far side, the event was more than a technical milestone. It carried a different meaning. For the first time, humanity deliberately stepped into what had never been seen. There, Earth does not hang in the sky. There is no familiar reflection, only a deep, dark sky and a particular kind of silence, not the silence of distance, but the silence of reduced interference. Less radio noise from Earth, less disturbance. A place ideal for listening to the faintest signals of the early universe. How strange it is, the side turned away from Earth becomes the place where we can hear the universe most clearly. Martin Heidegger once wrote in Being and Time, "Not all silence is mere absence of sound. The silence of the far side is not emptiness. It is a space clean enough for something very small to appear." Perhaps this is where science and healing touch most gently. For within every human being there is also a far side. Parts never told. Memories untouched by the common gaze. Not because they are ugly, but because they do not turn toward the world. We live mostly through our near side, the part that communicates, explains, reassures others. Yet, it is the far side, rough and less soothed, that holds the true history of existence. Dostoevsky wrote in Notes from Underground. I say, let the world go to hell, but I should always have my tea. The line sounds contradictory, yet it resembles the moon's far side closely, a place that does not need to perform, does not need to please, only needs to exist exactly as it is. When we think of the far side, we do not need to turn it into a dark symbol. It is not evil, it is not dangerous, it is simply unfamiliar. And perhaps for that very reason it offers a different kind of peace, the peace of not being seen, not being judged, not being forced to become smooth. Tonight, as you listen to these words, you do not need to picture the far side in scientific detail. You only need to feel what it means, that there are parts of the universe and parts of yourself not born to be constantly admired. They exist to hold memory, to store history, to form the foundation for the stability of what we see each day. The moon's near side is gentler because the far side bore the collisions. Familiarity can exist because somewhere something does not need to be familiar. And when humanity finally set foot there not to conquer but to listen, we learned something small yet profound. Not everything precious needs to turn its face toward the light. Some truths only need to be kept quietly in the dark so that the rest of the world can continue to turn in peace. After passing through the far side where ancient scars are preserved and silence remains pure, the stream of reflection returns to the present very gently, like a breath noticed only at the end. For even now, as you are listening, the Earth-Moon system is still moving, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, precisely, and irreversibly. Every wave beyond the shore is a whisper of gravity. Every rise and fall of the sea is a small transaction of energy. The tides are not merely a spectacle, they are a mechanism. As Earth rotates faster than the moon's orbit, the swollen tidal bulges fall slightly out of phase, pulling the moon a little farther away. Just a little, a few centimeters each year. Yet on the scale of the universe, that patience is power. Earth's day lengthens so slowly we cannot feel it, yet slow enough for the climate to learn how to soften across immense spans of time. And then a question arises, not to unsettle, but to open the imagination. What would happen if the moon were to rotate again? If tidal locking were broken even partially? Imagine it lightly. No apocalyptic scenario, just a system losing its rhythm. If the moon no longer held a stable face, tidal bulges would begin to slip unpredictably. The oceans could grow less predictable. Heat flows in the atmosphere might shift. Earth's axial tilt, long held by the hand of the moon from afar, could begin to wobble. Not immediately, but enough to make seasons harder to foresee over long time scales. Stability, we suddenly realize, is not stillness. It is an agreement being maintained. And when that agreement is disturbed, the system needs time to find a new rhythm. Here, the universe does not judge. It does not reward or punish. It simply does what all physical systems do. It seeks a state of minimal energy. Even if displaced, even if shaken, gravity patiently draws everything toward a new order, perhaps different but sustainable. Philosophy, when it touches this point, tends to speak softly, not to instruct, but to remind. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it is endurable, then endure it." The Earth-Moon system is no different. If it loses its rhythm, it will endure, not through force, but through time long enough for every oscillation to wear itself down. And perhaps here the scientific story becomes a healing one. For in inner life, we too encounter moments of what if old habits break? What if a relationship shifts? What if the rhythm that once held us steady no longer does? Then everything may feel unsettled. Emotions surge like tides without a schedule. Thoughts wobble like an axis that has lost its anchor. But like the universe, the mind does not seek perfection. It seeks a balance that can be endured over time. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in The Gay Science, "One must learn to love. To love here is not to cling to an old state, but to learn how to move with adjustment. To trust that even if the old rhythm is lost, another will form slower, gentler, but better suited to the energy that remains. If the moon were to rotate again, the system would be out of rhythm for a long time. But long for the universe is simply an opportunity to reorganize. In the end, a new lock would emerge not out of nostalgia, but because it is where energy is wasted least. There is a quiet beauty in this idea that even great disruptions do not negate nature's deepest tendency to move toward order through letting go of excess speed, letting go of unnecessary tension, letting go of oscillations that prevent rest. And tonight, as you listen to these words, you do not need to worry about a moon that might begin to spin again. What matters more is realizing that even now the system is adjusting itself. The oceans are still breathing, the day is still lengthening, the distance is still easing open just a little. There is no shock, only change distributed evenly. Perhaps this is where you might ask yourself a very gentle question. If the rhythm of your life were disrupted, how would you respond? Would you try to spin faster, or would you allow your system to slow down and find a new balance? Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book, "The soul demands your folly, not your wisdom." Sometimes that folly is the courage to trust that temporary chaos is not failure, but transition. That losing rhythm does not mean losing direction. And that in the end, like gravity, the deeper forces within you will also draw everything toward a place where rest is possible. If the moon were to rotate again, the universe would not panic. It would listen, adjust, and wait. If you lose your rhythm, you can do the same. No rush. No need to fix everything at once. Because the most enduring stability is not one that never changes, but one that knows how to heal itself. After imagining the larger scenarios where rhythm might be disrupted and then slowly find its way back to balance, the narrative softens and returns to a subtler question. Is the moon truly motionless as we so often assume? Or is it simply moving in ways too small, too slow for human senses to register? If you have ever watched the moon night after night for a long time with patience, you may sense something indistinct. One edge seems to reveal itself a little more. Another appears to bow ever so slightly. Not clearly enough to name, yet enough to leave an impression there is motion. Not the motion of breaking free, but of breathing. Science calls these tiny movements libration, oscillation. Three forms weave together like a very slow piece of music, longitudinal, latitudinal, and the shift caused by the observer's position on Earth. Because the moon's orbit is not perfectly circular, it sometimes moves faster, sometimes slower, while its rotation remains nearly constant, causing the face turned toward us to sway gently from side to side. Add to this the slight tilt of the moon's rotational axis, which allows us at times to glimpse beyond the northern edge, at other times the southern. And then there is Earth itself, its rotation shifting our viewpoint across a single day, adding yet another subtle nod. Taken together, we do not see merely half of the moon, but about 59% of its surface, as if the moon allows us to see a little more, but never everything. A gentle reminder that even familiarity has its edges. These oscillations are not only perceived by the eye, they are measured. Lasers are fired from Earth, reflected by small mirrors placed on the moon's surface, and return after a flawless journey. Radio tracking follows minute deviations in orbit. VLBI, radio telescopes separated by half the Earth, listen together for the moon's position with centimeter precision. Science here does not rush. It patiently listens to the smallest vibrations. And from those vibrations, we learn something deeper. The moon does not oscillate evenly. There are heavier, denser regions, mascons, the traces of ancient impacts and cooled lava flows. They bend the gravitational field ever so slightly, making the wobble imperfect. Yet it is precisely this unevenness that becomes the clue. From it, we infer the inner structure, the core, the mantle, the parts still warm and the parts long settled. There is a quiet beauty in this way of knowing, that to understand the inside of a world, we do not need to open it. We need only listen to how it moves when touched very gently. Philosophy often pauses here softly, for human beings are much the same. We imagine ourselves standing still within familiar habits, within roles that feel fixed. Yet if someone were patient enough to observe, they would notice small oscillations, a thought out of rhythm, a feeling tilting slightly, an evening that feels different. Not large enough to be called change, but enough to show that something inside is still alive. Ludwig Wittgenstein wrote in Philosophical Investigations, the aspects of things that are most important for us are hidden because of their simplicity and familiarity. Because they are so familiar, we miss the smallest movements until we slow down long enough. The moon's libration does not break tidal locking. It prevents that lock from becoming rigid. A little swaying allows the system to breathe, prevents tension from accumulating, keeps order from turning brittle. And perhaps this is the most healing lesson the sky offers us, that stability is not absolute stillness. It is stability with small oscillations. It is allowing oneself to lean slightly rather than standing rigid until exhaustion. As you lie listening to these words, you do not need to imagine measurements or instruments. You only need to feel what they mean. That within you too, there are mascons, heavier memories, denser experiences that sometimes pull your rhythm off course. And this does not mean you are broken. It means you are readable. Carl Jung wrote in Psychological Types, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos; in all disorder, a secret order. The moon's uneven oscillations are that secret order. They allow scientists to infer a warm core, a mantle still in motion. They tell us the world is not dead, only very slow. And if we carry this insight into inner life, we may breathe out more easily. We do not need perfect silence to be at peace. Peace can be a very small, steady sway, just enough to let you know you are still here, still connected, still held within a wider order. So when you look up at the sky and think the moon is motionless, remember this: it is moving in the gentlest way possible. And if something within you is moving in the same way, very small, very quiet, that is not instability, it is the sign of a system caring for itself silently. After touching those tiny oscillations, the subtle vibrations that keep a system from becoming rigid, the stream of thought naturally opens onto another question, deeper and harder to name. is the stability we observe almost too perfect. So perfect that from ancient times to the present, humans have continually wondered whether it is merely luck or whether something else is quietly at work beneath it all. In the universe, tidal locking is not rare. Many moons turn one face toward their parent planet. From a physical standpoint, this is nearly an inevitable outcome if time is long enough and friction patient enough. Yet when scientists look closely at the Earth-Moon system, they notice something different proportion. The moon is not small, not modest, not merely an attached object. It is large enough that in cosmic terms, this system resembles a binary pair more than a planet with a tiny satellite. Distance, mass, rotation rate, axial tilt, all of it falls within a very narrow range of possibility. Shift it only slightly, and the story would change entirely. The moon might fall back, or drift away forever. Or the system might become chaotic, never reaching the stable rhythm we now inhabit. Numerical simulations, cold, emotionless, make this clear. Among countless initial scenarios, only a thin band of parameters produces stability lasting billions of years. And strangely enough, we are within that band. Not at the center, not perfectly optimal, but precise enough to endure. When humans confront such coincidence, the mind often slides toward one of two extremes, either calling it a miracle or dismissing it as meaningless chance. Philosophy, especially when told slowly at night, tends to choose neither. It stays between the two long enough to feel the fragility. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensées, "The eternal silence of these infinite spaces frightens me, not because the universe is chaotic, but because it is indifferent. And it is precisely that indifference that makes stable configurations precious, not because they are favored, but because they are not eliminated. Among innumerable possibilities, a few are resilient enough to remain, not because they were chosen, but because they could withstand time. The Earth-Moon system is one of them, and here the scientific story draws very close to the human one. For in life, we also look at enduring relationships, sustained rhythms, lasting states of mind, and ask, how can this fit so perfectly? Yet if we look more closely, we see that behind them lies not initial perfection, but a long sequence of continuous adjustments, small enough not to break things, large enough not to freeze them in place. Tidal locking is common, but just enough symmetry is rare. And that rarity does not make the system special in a noble sense. It makes it fragile and therefore worthy of care. Carl Jung wrote in Answer to Job, "A great truth is a truth whose opposite is also a great truth." The great truth here is that this system did not have to exist. The equally great truth is that it does exist. Between those two lies a vast space where philosophy can breathe, not to explain why we deserve this, but to remind us that every stable state is temporary on a cosmic scale, and for that very reason, every moment of calm carries depth. If the moon were slightly smaller, tidal locking might be weaker. If Earth rotated faster, oscillations might be violent. If the initial distance were different, the system might never have found its rhythm. But none of that happened, not because of a guiding hand, but because sufficient conditions happened to meet. Tonight, as you listen to these words, you do not need to think about probabilities or simulations. You only need to feel the deeper meaning that the peace you have right now, whether in your mind, in a relationship, or in this very moment of listening, may also lie within a narrow band, not wide, not guaranteed, but enough to exist if you do not force it to be perfect. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster." Applied here, it may mean this: in trying to force everything into perfection, we may destroy the fragile stability that is quietly holding us. The Earth-Moon system does not strive for absolute symmetry. It simply keeps itself within a range that can be endured over time. And perhaps this is the whisper meant for whoever is listening tonight. You do not need to be at the center. You do not need to be optimal. You do not need to be right by every measure. You only need to remain within the band where life can continue without breaking you apart. The moon's perfection does not lie in never changing. It lies in the fact that across billions of years of change, it has never left the range from which balance can be restored. And that if we look slowly enough is not a miracle, but a very ancient form of natural wisdom. The wisdom of not going too far. After touching the fragile perfection of the Earth-Moon rhythm, the narrative gently changes direction, like turning over a smooth stone to reveal its other side. For behind that enduring calm lies a violent beginning, a moment that by human measure might be called brutality, yet by the universe's measure is simply energy finding a path. Long before the moon learned to keep a single face, the young Earth collided with Theia, a body roughly the size of Mars. There was no warning, no prediction, only speed, mass, and angle. Enough to melt rock, vaporize matter, and split one world into a pair, learning how to turn together. In that instant, there was no order, only chaos, like a shattered drumbeat sounding once and dissolving. What is strange is this: from that chaos, the universe did not create a foreign fragment. Isotopic evidence, those subtle chemical signatures, shows that the moon carries Earth's breath. So close, it unsettles us. So close, it forces us to abandon simple stories of capture or coincidence. Here, similarity is not chance, it is consequence. When matter is mixed under extreme heat and pressure, what remains is not two separate things but a shared memory. Newer models, such as the synestia, have tried to name that state. Not quite a planet, not quite a debris disk, but a rotating, flattened, incandescent cloud where the boundary between here and there dissolves. In a synestia, the moon does not stand beside Earth. It forms within Earth's sphere of influence, like a note rising from the same harmony. There is no clean separation, only shared motion prolonged until heat withdraws and shape is allowed to emerge. And then, as rock slowly cools angular momentum, the simple yet unforgiving principle begins to tell the next chapter. It does not allow energy to vanish. It allows only transformation. Rapid spin must yield to wider orbit. Impulse must yield to rhythm. Here, violence is ground down into the discipline of motion. There is no directing hand, only conservation laws patient as time itself. Philosophy often pauses at this moment to breathe, for there is a beautiful paradox. Violence gives rise to the conditions for peace. Not because violence is good, but because energy, when it has no escape, will reorganize itself. Hannah Arendt wrote of the power of beginnings, that each birth carries the capacity to begin again. Here, beginning wears no moral face. It wears a physical one. Yet the consequence is familiar. From wreckage, a new rhythm forms. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "One must have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Under this sky, the line ceases to be metaphor. It becomes description. The moon once was that chaos, and its dancing star does not dance quickly, it dances in time. If we listen more slowly, still a quiet healing lesson appears. The calm we seek does not always come from avoiding collision. Sometimes it comes from allowing collision to finish its work, so energy can be redistributed, so what spins too fast can slow, so what is too tense can be released into orbit. Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book, "In the chaos there is a cosmos, not after chaos, within it, like a seed already present, waiting for heat and pressure to do the rest." The moon does not hide its origin. It carries that memory in its asymmetry, in its uneven crust, in the difference between near side and far side. Today's calm does not deny yesterday's violence, it crystallizes from it. When we look up and see a familiar face, we may forget that familiarity was purchased through many days that were too short, many rotations that were too fast, many bends that went too far. But forgetting is not wrong. Forgetting is a privilege of systems stable enough not to rehearse the storm every night. And here the scientific story draws very near to life. For human beings also carry noisy beginnings, childhoods, upheavals, collisions we did not choose. We did not create them. We inherited the momentum. What we can do and what nature does so well is transform. Not in haste, not by denial, simply by allowing time to grind energy into rhythm. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny. Acceptance here is not resignation. It is consent to the law of transformation. Let what spins too fast slow down. Let what is heavy be distributed into orbit. Let chaos be permitted to become rhythm. If you are listening late at night, perhaps the gentlest thing you can do for yourself is not to rush to repair the past. The universe did not fix Thea. It did not erase the impact. It let momentum continue until a new rhythm appeared. And that rhythm, once formed, could nourish life, steady the seasons, and allow a planet to learn how to breathe evenly. The moon's calm is not concealment. It is a provisional conclusion of a long equation where violence has been transformed into order. When we understand this, we no longer need to fear our own past. We can whisper very softly, every energy has a place to go. And when energy finds that place, the night becomes quiet. After passing through a violent origin through ancient collisions slowly ground into rhythm, this journey does not close with an answer, but with a very distant horizon, so distant that it no longer stirs anxiety, only enough to soothe. The moon will not stop looking at the earth. Not tomorrow, not in millions or even billions of years. It will continue to hold that familiar face hanging quietly in the sky, while the earth very slowly learns how to slow down. Each wave will keep whispering to the shore. Each day will grow longer by a fraction so small it is almost imperceptible. And at a point in time far beyond human imagination, when a day becomes as long as a month, when both have grown weary of pulling each other out of rhythm, the earth may one day look back at the moon in a state of mutual locking. There will be no dramatic moment, no cracking sound, no flash of light. Only a belated agreement between two bodies that have been bound together long enough to no longer need to urge one another onward. If this happens at all, it will unfold in an unimaginably distant future, far beyond the moment when the sun swells into a red giant, beyond every story humanity can tell itself. Here, science invites us to reconsider what we mean by motion. We often think of motion as speed, as change, as refusal to stand still. But tidal locking reminds us that there is another kind of motion, a motion worn smooth by time until it becomes order. Not because it lacks energy, but because energy has found the most restful place to remain. Time is very good at this work. Friction does it quietly. Gravity does it patiently. And from these three, a kind of peace emerges, not the peace of absolute stillness, but the peace of a rhythm that has stopped resisting itself. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." Perhaps that is what the moon has found, not another place, but another rhythm. A rhythm slow enough to no longer need proof, steady enough to no longer require correction. And if we allow this story to touch our inner life, we may hear a very gentle consolation. Not every movement within us needs to accelerate. Not every change needs to break through. There are forms of healing that occur only when we allow time to do its work, to wear down sharp edges, redistribute energy, and let what remains settle into a place where it can rest. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. Oscillation is natural, and yet if it is not overmanaged, the swing diminishes. Like a pendulum slowing, like the moon finding its lock, like the mind after enough experience learning not to react to every stimulus." Seen this way, tidal locking is not a loss. It is the maturation of motion. A motion that has traveled far enough to no longer need to rush. A motion that has endured enough collisions to no longer need to prove its strength. In the night, as you listen to this, you do not need to remember numbers, timelines, or terminology. You only need to keep this feeling that there are processes in the universe and within you that unfold so slowly they do not demand constant attention. They do not need to be monitored. They only need to be left undisturbed. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "In Human all too human. The snake, which cannot cast its skin, has to die." But perhaps we should also remember the other side. The snake does not shed its skin in panic. It does so when the moment is ripe. The moon was not forced into its lock. It drifted into it through billions of years of tiny frictions. And the earth, if it ever looks back, will not do so in haste. This journey then does not end at a stopping point. It settles. Like the moment you realize you no longer need another answer in order to rest. That understanding, if it arrived at all, has finished its work. Not to be stored, but to open a space wide enough for peace to appear. The moon will still be there. Gravity will still be working. Time will still be flowing very slowly. And you right now do not need to move at the speed of the universe. You only need to let your breath slow a little, like a system gently adjusting itself toward a state of minimal energy. Tidal locking is not the absence of motion. It is motion that has learned how to rest. And perhaps that is where this journey invites you to land. Not out there among distant orbits, but right here in a moment quiet enough that you no longer need to turn. And then, as this story slows down, not because it has run out of things to say, but because there is nothing left to carry, you can let every idea that passed through dissolve very lightly like mist on a lake at midnight. You do not need to remember why the moon always turns one face toward the earth. You do not need to hold on to concepts of gravity, friction, or billions of years. They have completed their task. Not to be remembered, but to open a calm wide enough for rest to arrive. Out there, the moon still hangs quietly, unhurried, unchanged, needing no observer to continue moving in its own rhythm. And in this moment, you are allowed to be the same. You do not need to understand more. You do not need to go farther. You do not need to fix anything within yourself. Your breath can slow, your body can loosen, your mind does not need a final answer. The universe continues. The earth keeps turning. The moon remains like a gentle reminder that peace is not stillness, but having found a rhythm that no longer resists itself. If sleep is approaching, let it come like the tide, not summoned, not forced, simply returning to where it belongs. And if you are still awake, just stay here a little longer, in silence, in darkness, in the familiar slow rhythm of a universe that has turned long enough to know that not every movement needs to continue. Wishing you a truly quiet night.